Okay, so we're going to change the choke cable. Also want to point out, I have this tie thing over here. I slip over my keys so they don't fall out the ignition when I'm riding. With this cable, what happens is it splits. It cracks and splits, and instead of pulling it out from the center, it pulls out where the knob is, so there's no adjustment on it. So it's screwed up. This cable's getting changed. It just actually just goes right through the other side, so you know, just goes right between the two cylinders over to the carb. It's pretty simple. So we'll take off the go on the other side here and take off the air cleaner. Okay, so you remove the hose and you got a bolt here and a bolt here. It's a 1/2 inch bolt. I use we call it anti-seize because they go into aluminum threads, right? You know, it's a steel bolt going to aluminum heads. So when you take these out, the carb pulls straight out, but then you got to disconnect a couple things. It's not, this is actually what's holding it in. It's just a press fit. See, it'll come out. See, comes out. That's your choke. There's your throttle cable. That's your overflow hose. You just got to pull this out between the it goes between where like the oil canister is, down at the bottom. And the other thing is, this was your VOS, your vacuum operated electric switch, that gives you, that's off the top of the carburetor, right? Goes in there. That's for your two advanced curves, like under high vacuum when you're cruising. This thing goes to your VOS switch, which is right here, and it gives it a more advanced. And when you're under load, it's got, you know, no vacuum. Then it uses a different advanced curve, and so you don't have pinging. And what I do with these bolts, I like to just put them back in here so I don't lose them anywhere. Here's Mr. Cat coming by again. There he is. Right, Boots? And this, of course, is your crankcase breather. You just disconnect it from the back here, which is that. Oh, you can see that right there, right? Which is this. So the crankcase breather, like the air cleaner, is around the outside, so it gets, you know, breeze, fresh, clean air, right? So you disconnect that. And the only thing you got to do is disconnect the throttle cable. And to do this, you got one bolt here and one here. And when this slides off, it's loose enough that you can pull these cables off. You don't have to mess with the adjustment up there or nothing like that. You don't need to do any of that crap. Makes it real easy. Now, on the two screws, you got this screw and this top screw. You take these off, this all gets out of the way, and then the cables are loose, and you can slide them off here. If these screws don't come out very good, get some needle nose vice grip pliers just to crack them loose. And when you put them back in, make sure you use anti-seize because they're going steel into aluminum. Okay, so now they got the screw out of there and out of there. This can just slide out, and then for this one you got to turn this. I can't do it with one hand. You got to turn your throttle, and you turn it all the way. You can slip it out for the other one, no problem. You don't need to mess with this crap, adjusting everything up here like a lot of people do. Okay, the carb just pulls straight out, and the choke, which is hanging down right now, just pulls out between the cylinders. That's it. And then I disconnected the overflow hose from the bottom of the carburetor, which was right here. Okay, so now the carb's out, and see, this rubber gasket here, right here, goes on here. Well, you can see it right like that, maybe. It goes on that manifold. It just presses in there, man. That's all it is. So you want to have that on the manifold versus on the carb. If it comes off the manifold and sticks on the carb, you want to put it up because the carb fits in here. It's just an interference fit rubber. And these actually were originally rubber, the whole manifold, from the factory, and they split like crazy, and then they changed them. The aftermarket fixed it first, though, and that tells you about Harley. The aftermarket fixes everything first. So the carb's out. Well, normally with brakes on them, you can see, I don't know if you can see it right there. You see how it snapped right off. In other words, this is, well, it's freaking old, this snap, in other words, it's supposed to pull out from between the wheel and this knob. It's not supposed to pull out from here. That's snapped. That's normally what breaks. Now mine, what happened was this plastic fitting broke, and it caused a fire, and it melted some stuff in here like this, the nuts. I bought a new nut. I guess I didn't need this elbow. I was trying to order actually this rubber elbow, but I guess that's okay. Nothing's wrong with that. And I ordered accelerator pump lever and a little gasket accelerator pump lever, which is that. See, it's all melted, and a little gasket that goes on top of the accelerator pump. So but this basically just sits in here, man. It's real easy to change. Well, it should pull right out. Actually, it's like a plunger. That's all it is, and it's not a choke. It's an enrichment valve actually. So when you pull out this, it opens up more fuel to go in there. It's the same damn thing as a choke, really. It's not choking off air, it's just adding more fuel. That's the only difference. But in essence, it works the same damn way. The choke chokes off air. They call this a choke, right? But it's an enrichment valve. Instead of choking off air, it adds fuel. Either way, it just makes the fuel mixture a lot richer for cold starting. Well, this was a pain in the ass putting on this lever. There's actually this cotter pin went flying. I made a cotter pin from a wire. There's a washer on this side and a washer on the other side, then the cotter pin. To put this in, to hold this spring back, I used the vice grips, clamped it on the rod that kept the spring in position so I can get this on. Then I had to push this over the top here. There's a C-clamp, there's a washer underneath that, and underneath the bottom, if you can see that, probably not. Well, you see it now. That's the accelerator pump arm, and it goes right there, right there. So that elbow just hooks in there. It goes down the accelerator pump arm. So that's on. Now what I'm having a problem with is taking out this bullshit because it's broken off in there. I'm trying to tap it and with a screwdriver and turn it, but one step at a time. That's the way it goes. Well, I finally got the threads out. I cut the cable with the vice grips, and so then I was able to pull this out of the way this is the new stuff. I installed the new bolt on here, nut, the new elbow, and the rubber thing, and the cable just slides through it. So I took my knife and it grabbed it, and I was just able to turn it back and forth, and it finally came out. So this came out, and there's just a piece that just hooks in there, and that's all there is to it. I'm gonna probably put some lube in there and shit though before I freaking put this thing back together. Okay, so that's the enrichment valve with the spring, and you can see there's a little thing you put, I don't know what the hell you call that, nub that fits in there, and the spring's behind it. This nut back here tightens up and crimps the plastic, so it gives you resistance, so when you pull it out, it holds it in position. Mine was broke right here, so it just didn't work right. Of course, it caught on fire and then it really screwed up. So when this pulls out, it allows fuel to dump in there. That's just, it's an enrichment valve. That's all it is. I'm gonna put some anti-seize on that shit just to make sure it's okay. And probably now the cable should be all right. It should be all right. Some anti-seize. Okay, so it's in there, and you get it in there pretty tight, but you know it's this moves around like that, but the nut is tight. Okay, this actually tightens up to your you know, that little bracket that's on there, right? But, and I don't know if you can see it. See right here? It's like thinner, and this part right here, that's where mine split, so it didn't work, right? This goes on the opposite side of the bracket, and like that, this did with the washer, like that, right? Now what actually tightens up is this knurled screw. A lot of times these get screwed up after a while, but the disc can split right here, and you tighten down that knurled screw enough that when you pull the choke out, it holds it out like that, and you can push it in. You pull it out, it's got that spring, it's working against that spring, and then that spring pushes that valve in. So if you, let me just unscrew this shit here. You have it otherwise, you unscrew that thing, it'll just pop back. It'll pop back by itself. So that's usually, that's, to me, that isn't even a problem. I was living with that no problem, because you don't really need to choke on these things too much. You can kind of hold them out by hand and give it a couple squirts with the accelerator pump, because the instructions they give you from the factory owner's manual, they'll leave the choke on for 2 minutes, will flood the crap out of this damn thing. So I don't do that anyway. But it was broke down here, and that meant that that valve wasn't pushed in, which means it was enriching, which you don't want that. So that's done. This is done. It's just, everything's just the opposite of what you put it in, like what I showed you to take apart. It's very simple. So I'm just going to put this away and put it together tomorrow, because it's late at night right now. It's about midnight or so. So kind of a pain in the ass, because this wasn't normally the way you change these. Normally you just unscrew this because it's screwed up down here, but mine was, they had that carb fire, and I suggest if you're got the carb off, do this, and look at my other video on how to do that. I know how to change those out without buying any special parts to pull that, the old thing, the old fitting. So I just had to pay for the brass fitting. I didn't buy no special tool to put this thing, pull out the old one and put a new one in. But that's what caused the fire. This was cracked, and the car backfired and melted some of the shit in here, so I had to change out the hose and all that crap. But you know, it's all fixed now.